I am Jonathan Humphreys. Welcome to the Hokoso Conversation. Welcome to this podcast with Simone Gibertoni. He is the CEO of Clinique La Prairie, one of the most luxury hospitality brands in the world. This conversation will be covering what it takes to be a leader in this new reality that we have, what the importance of mindset is, and how to cultivate really good habits, how to goal set in the right way, and the critical aspect of being present and mindful in our day-to-day lives. We will also be covering how we can actually take perspective and seek the right kind of opportunities and look at things the right way in order to create positive momentum in our lives as leaders and as role models for our companies, for our communities, and for society. I hope you enjoy this discussion. We look forward to you and your journey with us. Thank you very much. So, Simone, it's a pleasure having you on the podcast this afternoon.
Thank you, Jonathan. It's my pleasure.
So, Simone, we have had several conversations in the past, and I actually don't know where this conversation is going to take us. I've got so many questions. There's so many topics we could cover. Maybe we just start. You've written a book actually a while ago, High Performance Company, and it's all about high performance leaders. And so many of the topics that you cover in the book are extremely relevant today. I guess first up, what prompted you to write the book?
That's a good question. I think I always wanted to put on paper. It was a way for me to structure the ideas that I had in my mind and to structure what I was doing every day and what I was seeing that was working. So it was a way for me really to create a framework of what I was doing and try to have, sometimes it's difficult in the day-to-day life, busy life, that we have to have an helicopter view. And this is something that I liked. I've worked a lot in consulting. So, of course, it's part of my background. And that's what I try to do with my books.
So it was creating like a toolkit and framework for your own thinking.
Right, for my own thinking. And also this idea that what I have applied, what I thought was working could help somebody else and could give ideas and ways of reflection to other people reading it. All my books are freely available. So, of course, the idea was really to share ideas.
Yeah, I think it's important today to somehow transmit our knowledge for the benefit of others. There's some topics in the book I would like to just, maybe we start with zero-based thinking.
Yeah.
Because that seems to be very helpful at this current time when we really don't know what the future's going to look like. So could you explain what you meant by zero-based thinking and how you are currently applying it, and also where did it come from?
Listen, zero-based thinking is a way to look at things with a very fresh view, but at the same time capitalizing on the experience that you have today. So basically, zero-based thinking is about reevaluating the decision that you made in the past, knowing what you know today. And this is giving you really the possibility to think every day in a really, again, fresh way. What is your plan? What is your future strategy? What you should do today, again, knowing what you know.
So it's an opportunity to say, if I started the business again from scratch, what would I do? How would I do it?
Exactly. If I would restart it again from fresh, knowing what I know today, what I would do differently. And if there are things that I would do different, do it.
Exactly.
Which is very difficult, no? Because, of course, there is an history, there are decisions that we have taken. We want to prove ourselves that we were right at that time when we took this decision. In this way is, again, a way to really clear our mind and rethink sometimes dramatically what we do.
Also, we have a team organization that is already there. It has an impact. So, Simone, can you give an example where you've been able to apply this?
Yeah, listen, many times in the past, of course, the most difficult way to apply the zero-based thinking is on people, because it sometimes is obliging you to take difficult decision. By the way, Jonathan, let me say, zero-based thinking is also very useful to be applied not only in our business life, but also in our personal life. Then, of course, on a strategic decision, zero-based thinking is very important because it's giving you the possibility, even on some very important strategic decision that you took in the past, to completely reevaluate them and do something different.
Are you able to give an example where you've applied it in business? And also you mentioned personal life. How can we apply this in our personal life?
I want to give you an example here in the life of Clinique La Prairie. First of all, to be able to apply zero-based thinking, you have also to apply a mindset of trial and error. So you need to be able to make a lot of trials, make a lot of mistakes, learn from the mistake, and then once you learn from the mistake, then you are able to reevaluate the decision that you took in the past. And that's what we did when 3 years ago we started the international development of the company of Clinique La Prairie. We wanted to have this mindset and try different things, see what was working, what was more aligned on our vision, our values, and then keep only what we thought was not only working from a business standpoint, but was really aligned to our vision and to our experience. For example, in our international development, we launched a different model of development, and we came through trial and error to what is the vision that we have today for the company, which is this idea of building 4 places like Clinique La Prairie in Switzerland, 1 in the United States, 1 in Europe, 1 in Middle East, and 1 in Asia. 15 city hub, what we call city hub, which are these centers which are giving us the possibility to follow up with our client all the therapies that we do here at the clinic, knowing that over 80% of our clients are living in these 15 cities all around the world. And then talking about zero-based thinking, we're thinking about how can we also put our expertise in the aesthetic medicine, which is one of our core business. And we wanted to be able to be flexible from this point of view. And that's why we decided to build not on these 15 cities, but in other cities, even smaller center where we decided to focus on aesthetic medicine. And basically this constellation that we have fine-tuned in the last 3 years is what will hopefully accompany us in the next 10 years when finally we will have fulfilled our vision.
Wonderful. Having a approach of trial and error within an organization like yours means that the team needs to have a mindset that embraces this approach as well. And that brings me on to the importance of transformation, the ability to transform, and the ability to handle change, because we're talking about disrupting the status quo and also having multiple possible outcomes, which you don't yet know until you've got comfortable with a certain outcome, and then saying, okay, this is the path that we're going to go down. So I'd like to come back to the question of mindset in a minute, the importance of mindset within the team, within yourself. But just to follow up on my last question, personally, how can we apply this to our personal lives? Because I feel that our work lives and personal lives, they're so intertwined more than ever today. And when it comes to performance and leadership and well-being, I guess having a zero-based thinking approach in our personal lives, is that helpful as well? And maybe you can explain how and if you've been able to apply it in your personal life.
Here we are already talking about mindset, which is now the fundamental of every personal success, I would say, and consequently also the reason of every business success, because businesses are made first of all of people, and mindset is all about belief. Now, what you believe is true, what you believe is false, what you believe that you can do, what you believe your people can do. There is a nice definition of leadership, which is leader is somebody that is able to bring people where they are not able to go by themselves. So mindset is about belief, and I'm a little bit extreme here, but I always say that you can learn any job in maximum 2 or 3 months of study. What makes the difference is the mindset and the attitude. No? And coming back to your question about transformation and change, We all like to be in our comfort zone. If you want to have this mindset, you have always to force yourself to go out from your comfort zone, to try new things, to think in different way, to see things in a different way, not to think like everybody is thinking, no, because unfortunately the common view is not always the right view. I would say more the contrary. So that's what we have to do every day. And from this point of view, I would say try to be an example for our colleagues. I also relate, Jonathan, a lot the idea of change with the idea of continuous improvement, which is for me, there are two things when we talk about teams and people, which for me are very important. By the way, talking about people, if I should tell you the most important things to run an high performance company is, of course, to have the right team of people. It's about the common vision that you're able to create with your people. But there are two things about people and culture. The first one is creating this culture of continuous improvement. I'm used to say, come back every day in the office and ask yourself what I can do today better than yesterday. And I think this is a fantastic question also on a personal level. What I can do on a personal level today better than yesterday with my kids, with my spouse, with my colleague, with my business. How can my business today be just a little bit better than yesterday? Because a lot of little bit better in a year are becoming huge change, huge improvement.
Absolutely. I like this a lot. I was very fortunate. I took a break a few weeks ago to do a Zen retreat, which you know about. I actually went there just to take a pause, clear my mind, recharge, just conscious that my batteries to be above half full and ideally 3/4 full on average. And the only way that's going to happen is by having some time every so often. So I went there with that intention, but I realized the way that the program was structured was every single, I would say, hour was a opportunity to be out of the comfort zone. And I realized that actually what was happening, I was building a resilience to uncertainty because I didn't know the program. We weren't told the program. We didn't know what was going to happen from one session to the other, arriving at 7 a.m. after I get up at 4. And then we knew we were going on a hike, but we didn't know it was a 12-hour hike. It was only when I asked the question, how long are we going for? And I figured out it was 12 hours. And then observing my response to that and everybody around me, their response to it, and realizing that how sometimes incapable we are of adjusting to the unknown. But at the same time, what I realized is it was the little things that you've just mentioned that change for me, which I've really tried to do every day since I've come back, is just go outside the comfort zone every single day in very small ways. If I've got choices of doing something, I've got the way I've always done it. I've got the way that maybe is a change, but is still very much in my comfort zone, or there's another way. And sometimes it's also not for me, right? It could be for my family. So I like the idea of bringing people to where they may not be able to go alone. So apply that to my son as an example. He's just got a new bike from his brother, didn't really like riding. So we had the choice of going to Zurich by car or train, right? Train would have been novel because of what's going on, or cycling, which was about 1.5, 2 hours. Now for him and for me, I haven't cycled for a long time either. That was a big thing. And I thought, no, we're going to do this together. We're going to take our time. We're going to go as a family, and thoroughly enjoyed it. Thoroughly enjoyed the experience and back. Right, and had a picnic and jump in the river and everything. But what I realized is these small decisions. It's these tiny little decisions that you go, okay, that's out of the comfort zone, still comfortable for me, but for him, that's now a hugely memorable experience. It's kind of about, if I'm interpreting what you're saying correctly, there's the opportunity to do these little things every day, whether it's in our personal life or our work life, with our colleagues, with our team, with ourselves. And it's about choice to a certain extent as well. We can choose to behave in a certain way or not, is how I'm interpreting what you've explained and what you've written in your book. Is that a right interpretation of this?
First of all, your example about the bicycle is a great example, because what your kids learn is not about the bicycle, is that he now can do something he thought he was not able to do. 4-hour ride on the bicycle. This is opening not this possibility to him, but probably thousands of different possibilities in the future for him. Yes. No, that's what it it means changing a belief. When you change a belief, you don't change only, in this case, the idea I can do 4 hours of bicycle. It changes a lot of things. Next time he's facing something that he think he cannot do, he's going to think about that Sunday with you. And like I've been able to do it that time with my father, probably I'm going to be able to do it now. And that I think is fantastic. And then, yes, I believe that small daily improvement lead to incredible long-term result. We are used to say that we are very good in overestimate what we can achieve in the short term and underestimate what we can achieve in the long term, which is absolutely true. And if we do this small change and this small improvement every day, we can really change a lot in the long term. That's the first mindset, if you want, that I like to apply every day. The second one, it's a mindset of result. We have also shared these ideas, me and you, many times, is try always to focus my people on result. I think that bureaucracy and politics is one of the worst things that can happen in a company. And unfortunately, we see it every day. I don't like the idea of saying that our role is to make our people happy in the work, but we have to make them able to achieve their result. Because when people achieve what they want to achieve, they are happy by definition. No? And politics, bureaucracies in companies, which is the opposite of meritocracy and result, is what really is sometimes more frustrating for people. And the last mindset is the culture of help, which I also believe very much. So this idea that inside the management team, we have always to help each other to achieve what we want to achieve, because we can do it only if we are all together.
Simone, can we explore the focus on results? So this is really focusing on output rather than necessarily how to get there and measuring every step along the way.
Absolutely.
And how can we apply this on a daily basis? How are you able to do this within the organization? Or is it not a daily thing? Is it more a longer period of time? Just how are you able to do this with your teams?
Absolutely. It's the difference still, unfortunately, so much applied in companies, is the difference between the focus on the input and the focus on the output. So I listened to one of your recent podcasts and you were talking about this, the importance not to focus on what my people are doing every day, but which are the results that I'm expecting for them. Then a different way to reach this result inside, of course, the mission and the values of the company, but is exactly moving from this idea of we still tend to do so much focusing on the input and going to the idea of the output and let people in a way inside the company objective fulfill this result in the way which is the best way for them and not only for the company.
And I guess helping them be part of that setting of results that need to be obtained so that they are buying into that as well.
Absolutely.
Just kind of imposing a result on somebody or a team is also hard for them to achieve that result. So I guess there is a part of it is a discussion about what results need to actually be achieved.
Jonathan, there are two problems in taking decision all alone or in very small group of people. And we know that in business, the biggest mistake has been taken by people who has not listened to what was happening in the company, to their manager. So I am not a big believer of a top-down decision taken by CEO. And that's why I think I'm in total agreement with what you are saying. And I'm not imposing objective because I'm not the best person to know what are the best objectives, for example, in terms of marketing to achieve my vision. My role is to set the vision, is to set the values, is to set the overall objective, but then is my marketing director who knows probably much better than me what to do to reach this objective.
I was speaking with a colleague recently, Sean Worker, who heads up a company called T5 Strategies, and he's an ex-CEO of Bridge Street, and he was likening this output-based approach to the difference between VCs and private equity. So venture capitalists, essentially, they agree the goal that needs to be done for the first round of funding, and they'll have a check-in date, and they'll give time for the team to essentially get from a way to the agreed result. And they'll have a check-in date just to see how things are going. And obviously they agree what those results need to be up first with the team. And they say, okay, here's the money and we'll come back. And they pretty much leave them alone. Yeah, go for it. Run as fast as you can. Check back in if you need our support or help, but we'll come back to this check-in. The private equity, on the other hand, is here's the money and we want to monitor and program all the way to have control, right? So it's a completely different approach. And therefore, especially if you've seen the success of the companies that have had VC back, not every company has had great success, but that early phase or the adaptation, and also when you're looking at trial and error, which is really trying to figure out the best opportunity and you're trying to do things as fast as possible, that approach has been well tested in the investment world. So I think it seems to be a very solid approach.
I like private equity and venture capital. Very true.
Yeah, I think it's a nice analogy. I wanted to get back to mindset because so much of what can be solved today in terms of kind of broaden this out into mental well-being, mental health, mindset is absolutely critical. So you've mentioned the focus on change, and I gave the example about building resilience. What other things can we do to build the right mindset? One of them is looking at incrementally every day making a change, but how can we prepare ourselves better to be in the right frame of mind from the moment we get up in the morning, the way that we look at things, the way that we are faced with the uncertainty of the day, the week, the month at the moment, the year, maybe the next 5 years at the moment. We have no idea what's going to happen. We have no idea. And I think that is what is causing a huge amount of stress for people, is this huge amount of uncertainty. However, there are things that we can do as individuals and also collectively to improve our attitude and our mental attitude and our approach. So I was just wondering if you could share other things that you were able to do either personally or also maybe with your teams or your family, friends, colleagues.
We are both of us sharing a technique, let's call it technique, even if it's much more than a technique, which is transcendental meditation, which helped me a lot in the last year to achieve this balance, which you need to have, especially in moments like this that we are facing today. If you were talking about what to do in the morning, I think it's very important the way you start your day. I have inserted transcendental meditation inside the routine that I do every morning, which for me is very important to keep this balance. Even if I think that, Jonathan, if you are simplistic what I'm saying, but we need to learn to live in a kind of blissful state, whatever it happens, in the sense that we need to have this mindset of being grateful, really, whatever it happens, every time, and try always to stay focused inside this type of resourceful mindset. And of course, like you said, routine can help us to do this. Transcendental meditation is helping you. That has been my experience. I would like to hear your experience also from this point of view, but it's helped me a lot to be much more detached to the problem that you are facing in your everyday life. And again, to gain this balance, whatever it happens to us in our daily life. I'm also in the morning used to review another, I call it my life book, is really reviewing every day what is the mission that you have in your life, which are the objectives that you want to achieve, which are the values that you have. And for me, for example, it's very useful to read it every morning. It's helping me a lot to stay on track every day, despite, again, what's happening to you. And on top of this, I think that you need to have this belief, because it's a belief. I don't know if it's true or it's not true, but it's very useful to think that life at the end is going to bring you where you want to go.
Simone, you mentioned that you have something written down. Obviously, if it's too personal, no need to share it. But would you like to give an example of the things that you read every morning? What kind of things? Is it inspirational? Is it a conscious reminder? Does it give you energy? I was just wondering if you can give an example for the listeners of how this tool could be effective for them.
I tell you what I do every morning. It's a routine that is taking me 1 hour. I have fine-tuned if you want, during the year, I think I came up with something that is very useful for me and is basically 20 minutes of transcendental meditation, which, as you know, you are also a meditator, is a very specific tool, is a very specific way of meditating, is different from mindfulness. It's something that has also proven scientifically to bring a lot of great result, not only from a mindset point of view, but also in terms of aging, in terms of inflammation. Then I spend 15 minutes in reading again every day and reviewing every day my mission, my main objective, that I at least once every year rework, review my values. I have done a lot of work in always try to align my objective with my values. And of course, inside this reading, which I do every morning, is divided into what we call the areas of life, which is, of course, the work, the family, personal development. So that's very important for me because it's helping me again to start the day with very clear objective in front of me. Then I like to take 10-15 minutes for some stretching, yoga. I like the 5 Tibetans, which is a very, let's say, quick way to get energy in the morning when you wake up. And then I take the last 10-15 minutes to read the news of the day. I'm a big fan of the Financial Times, so I like to take a few minutes to read it through, keep aside the article that I need to read the weekend. And that's for me the best way to start the day.
It's a very constructive way of starting. I'm a great believer in habit stacking, which is essentially having habits that really give us a positive energy. And actually, what I like about habit stacking is it doesn't allow time for negative habits, actually, right? So the more that we are able to stack into our day, then the other ones, there's no place for them anymore. So yes, I do transcendental meditation. What I like about it, for me, it creates a space where my mind is at rest and everything just stops for a period of time. You know, the kind of monkey mind, as we call it, is constantly bouncing around. It's in the past, it's in the present, it's in the future. And through this tool, I've been able to calm that to a certain extent. And I find that certain things happen during that process, which, you know, I have a lot of thoughts that come, creative thoughts that I'm able to write down afterwards, or ideas, or people I would like to talk to, like yourself, and have a podcast with. So things come because I've created this space for them to come and allowed them to happen in a calm state. Also, the other interesting aspect is it does have an effect during my day on the most part. I wouldn't say these things are not bulletproof and they're not meant to be, and then no silver bullet. The idea is that it creates a opportunity to pause before reacting to a situation which, wow, okay, that hit me. The fact is, life for all of us has the same aspects, which is there's going to be periods of stress, there's going to be periods of uncertainty, unpredictability. That's all life stuff, right? It is going to happen every single day. The question is, I think, always, how are we going to respond? How are we going to behave? What's going to be our mental frame of mind when life just happens, right? So I think these tools are super helpful because they just allow us to create a better frame of mind overall. I had a question about your personal values. How important is it to have personal values defined? And how do you define personal values?
Listen, this is the second. I was sharing with you the fact that I'm working bits and pieces on a new book. And that's, in fact, the second chapter of the new book, which is all about values and how to arrive to the values. I fine-tune a process, which I have to tell you is a little bit complicated, but I think is working quite well because, you know, values is something which is very abstract in a sense. And I was feeling that was very important for me to really elicit in a clear way my values to drive my everyday decision, but I was not able to find the right way of doing it, and that's what I try to do with this process of selection. And of course, what is the importance of value is that every time you take a decision which is not aligned with your values, you feel there is something which is not working. Even if consciously sometimes you are not able to understand what is not working, is because they are not aligned with your true self and what you really feel inside you.
Yes. I mean, I've been through this where things have happened where it's really had an impact on me. And it was during a time in my previous company, there was a particular incident and it just didn't feel right. It didn't feel right at all. And it conflicted with something I felt deeply about. And it resulted in sleepless nights. I couldn't focus. I was not motivated. It was a shock to me because I'd always been, in terms of performance, it would always come relatively through effort, energy, all of these things. And that was the shock. I can see the benefit in understanding what your values are because I hadn't realized that had hit me so hard because I hadn't articulated the values to myself. So I can appreciate that. So once you've been able to identify your values, so there is a benefit that then you're able to be aware of what those values are.
Exactly. And align the objectives to these values, the areas of your life where you set then your different goals to these values. And therefore, of course, it's not impossible, like you said, to have a constant check of it, but at least for what is guiding the big direction of your life to be sure that you are aligned with these values. I think that you said something which is crucial a few minutes ago, which is that it's not so important what is happening to you, but the way you react and you answer to what is happening to you. That makes all the difference.
Absolutely.
That's why also questions are so important, because it's not the answer, but are the questions that are making you think in a different way in front of what life is bringing to you. That's why I'm a big believer on the importance of questions.
So what kind of questions? Is it the questions to ourselves? And what kind of questions should we be asking ourselves? I guess where I'm going with this is that we're in a fortunate situation where even having this discussion, that we've embarked on a journey where we're exploring this. We're able to have tools and techniques in place. But we're kind of talking about personal transformation in a way for a lot of people. Some people are much further down the road. Some people maybe haven't started yet. So I'm just wondering how we can do that. So what kind of questions should we be asking?
At least the question is, as you know, is the principle of coaching, by the way. No, the coach doesn't have all the answers, but has really a lot of right questions to ask you.
Yes.
So I say there are no magic questions, even if I think myself, like you said, that habits are very important. There are probably a few questions that we should ask ourselves every day. There are a few questions that we should ask ourselves every time we have a problem to face. But the idea is that the right question is able to put you in a state which is full of resource, full of possibility to solve the problem that you have, for example, instead of leaving you in a state where you don't know what to do, or you think there is no way out, or you think there is nothing to do. And talking about business, also in business, as we know, questions are so important from this point of view. Asking ourselves the right question.
Asking ourselves and asking others. You know, one of the things I've realized is the clarity of communication is absolutely key. Communication between each other, understanding each other is absolutely critical. So the questioning aspect to make sure that we understand and also to make sure that we're understood, right, is very, very helpful because that can alleviate a lot of the tension and stress within a particular situation. All right, here's where I'm going with this. The clearer the communication and that we can be on point with each other, then it removes or alleviates the room for misconception and misinterpretation. Therefore, if we are able to connect point to point, then we're able to achieve our objectives, we're able to achieve our results, we're able to work together much easier, we're able to lead our teams much easier, we're able to also have stronger relationships with our friends and our families. So I'll tell you how I'm doing, and I'm just wondering how you're able to do this as well. The mindfulness aspect for me is interesting, you know, past, present, and future with all these different things going on. So I've made a real conscious effort to be 100% focused on the present whilst I'm in the present. It's super hard. It's the really most difficult thing to do. And, you know, since I've started doing this, I get to the end of the day, I'm exhausted. It's really tiring. But at the same time, it's super. Somehow it feels so important. It's the right thing to do. And I'm getting it wrong all the time, for sure. But now I'm aware I'm getting it wrong and I'm missing the nuance or I'm missing the situation. Whereas before I maybe wasn't. So this for me is my tool at the moment to really start honing my communication. And I'm sure my team will say, look, he's all right, but he's got a long way to go, which is fine. But I'm conscious of it and I'm making a big effort. So I'm just curious what your thoughts are on communication.
Look how wonderful is the fact that at the end everything is linked, because now we are able to link communication with presence and, let me say, with meditation. What I want to say is that at the end, what is the mistake that we all make in communication? We think that we are looking at ourselves, we are looking at our communication. We are not looking at the result of the communication with the people, with the person, for example, we are talking. Because at the end, I can be a fantastic communicator, but if the person in front of me didn't got the message that I wanted to send to her, I am not a good communicator. But to understand if the people in front of me, the person who is in front of me, has really understood what I want to say, there is only one possibility, which is the presence. Being present, listening, looking at what's happening around me, not thinking about my telephone or what I should do after or what I did yesterday. I need to be in full presence. Why I link this to meditation? Because I felt, I'm like you, I have a lot to do to be present. For me, it's a struggle that I try to do every day. But I felt that meditation helped me a lot in being more present during the day. Presence at the end, presence, listening, and really is the key to a good communication, by the way. So I love to see how all these different things are linked one to the other.
Wonderful, Simone.
And by the way, if I remember well, presence was one of the key points that you discussed in your Zen week that you did.
Absolutely. It was about really focusing on the task. And what's really interesting is that the more mundane the task that we are doing, I'll give you an example. I have my boys every 2 weeks. So when I'm on my own in the apartment, I will cook something for myself in the evening. Now, normally it's also a time where I catch up with something to read or watch something on Netflix that I've been waiting to watch or whatever it might be. But I normally do something else while I'm eating. And since the week there where every task, no matter how mundane, was just done for the sake of doing it and focusing on it, I've just taken the time just to cook without any distraction and to eat. It's really hard to do. It's really hard to do. Just focus and enjoy the food and enjoy eating it. Super hard. But what I've realized is actually it's more and more creating a sense of focus and calm. And the big challenge we have today is managing stress. One of the big challenges. But what I've realized is if you have a look around, then I've been doing this since I got back, people out running in the forest with iPods in, okay? So we're multitasking all the time, like whatever we're doing. And multitasking in itself, by definition, it reduces our ability to focus and it reduces our ability to be in the moment. So I'm trying to eliminate that from my life at the moment, the multitasking aspect. It's super hard because I love driving and listening to a podcast. Now I'm just driving for a while and it's really interesting. Being alone with my own thoughts is interesting to say the least, but it's an opportunity for reflection. So that's where I'm going at the moment with focus and with being in the present.
And listen, I don't know if you notice, every time I see somebody telling me, I spent an evening with this guy, he was super interesting person, maybe it can be a guru or a manager. Then I ask why you felt that it was so interesting. And I would say almost always I get two answers. He was present. It seems to me that he was there just for me. And second, he was asking a lot of incredible questions.
Yes.
So charisma is a lot related to these two characteristics of being present and asking questions.
Absolutely. I think it's a very powerful combination. So Simone, let's talk about companies and people, because based on our conversation, this is all linked together. The mindset of us as leaders, the mindset of our teams as individuals, the ability to change, the company's ability to change, it's all linked together. Everything that we're talking about mindset, we're talking about attitude. So I'm just wondering how you think all of this comes together. You just said something very powerful.
Well, I think in our conversation, it's very interesting how we blurred the boundaries between personal development and company development, because now we have talked about company vision and values and mission and personal vision and mission, the mindset. And of course, how can you have a company that is able to change and to change faster if inside this company there are not people with the mindset of change? It's impossible by definition. And that's why we always say that there are a lot of things which are easy to change in a company, but the most difficult things to change is the culture, because the culture is made of the mindset of all the people living in that companies. Absolutely. And sometimes the powerful leader are the leaders that are able to change the culture of the company, because they are able to open the mindset of the people.
Absolutely. It's so connected though, isn't it? Because you can have a great leader, and I guess true leadership is the ability to unlock the people in the right way.
Potential.
And also have already training and support in place that creates that right mindset, right? So that there isn't a mass unlocking that needs to be done when there is a need for change, or if the culture is already about change, people are already part of that on a day-to-day basis. They know that that's the culture of the company. And maybe that's what it's about going forward, is that we need to be aware that given the massive uncertainty, it is about everyone being comfortable and being able to adapt to the changing environment that we're going to be in, because we just don't know what is going to be happening in the future, even more than ever before. So if we take the new reality as the unpredictability, then we can take advantage of it. We can take advantage of this unpredictability. And the risk today is that we, as individuals and as companies, we end up being in a stasis, because we're waiting for something to happen to tell us what to do, right? It's like this hurry up and wait approach that if anybody's done any kind of military training, you hurry up, and then you're waiting for the order to do something, and then nothing comes, right?
Yes, and Jonathan, let me say, thinking that is not under our responsibility. There is a virus which is outside ourselves, so it's not our responsibility. We cannot do anything. Let's stay here and wait to see what's happening, which is the big subject of, again, responsibility. That's the first chapter of you. Take the responsibility. If you don't take the responsibility always, even if sometimes it's not always possible, but the mindset has to be the mindset of taking the responsibility, the ability to answer to what's happening.
So let's talk about responsibility, because it's a big word. And actually, at the same time, it's also something that isn't really talked about a lot in today's society. Taking on responsibility, being responsible. It always sounds very heavy, right? It always sounds like, wow, that's going to be a huge effort. But at the same time, those that are able to take on responsibility are the ones that people look for leadership positions. They are the ones that, if they're team members that take on responsibility, that act responsibly, they're the ones that, as leaders, we always look to. So responsibility is really important. However, I believe it's deeply connected with where a person or team is with regards to their mindset. It all comes back to the same thing. I believe that you can only take on more responsibility, or you can take on responsibility if you have that mindset, maybe around resilience. And an analogy would be the ability to go walking. I was hiking last weekend. The ability to go hiking in the mountains carrying a pack. The ability to carry, let's say, a 30-kilo pack in the mountains. The first time you do it, maybe you say, I don't feel like carrying this pack. I'm going to empty this pack and I'm going to reduce my kit, and I'm just going to carry 5 kilos because I can maybe do it. And then you get caught in the storm, and you haven't got your waterproofs with you, or you haven't got enough water because you thought it was longer than what it was going to be. But if you're taking the 30 kilos, it's going to be hard. It's going to be really hard, but you'll most likely get through it. We're actually physically resilient beings. The second time you carry that 30-kilo pack, it's going to seem a lot easier. And by the 5th time, it's really easy. And then it doesn't matter what the weather is. It doesn't matter what's going on. You know that you can get through it. It doesn't matter if you've got somebody else with you who hasn't done it before. You can take them through it, right? And maybe the next time you can increase it to 35 kilos or 40 kilos, or you can go longer. So I see the metaphor for responsibility. It is the ability to carry the load. And all of these tools that we've been talking around are basically a way of enhancing our performance, our technique, in order to carry our load. you're CEO of one of the most prestigious hospitality companies in the world. That in itself has a huge responsibility. And I imagine the word comes up regularly, either in your thoughts or with your colleagues and with industry peers. And just wondering how you see the word responsibility and how important it is.
Yeah. First of all, I think your metaphor is saying it all already, because you have already touched all the point. You can then, instead of the load, instead of the mountain track, you can transfer it to a company which maybe has to go through different difficult time, like the time that we are living now. But you said it all already. I think when you are managing a company, can be this company. Of course, it's also great for me privilege to be CEO of Clinic Laprairie. There is always the responsibility that you have a lot of people, you have a lot of families, and you need to feel responsible for taking care of them in the best way possible. And all the things that we were discussing before, all the stretch that you have to do even to yourself, to be able to change, to have new ideas, to bring the business forward. At the end, the final objective is this one: to maintain and to preserve the life of the company. We both read recently a book that we love, which is Finite and Infinite Game. That's an idea that I love, this idea of being just, hopefully for the longest period possible, the CEO of this company, but with the idea that the company has to last forever. And this idea of creating the condition for the companies we are working for, or we have if we are entrepreneur, to last forever. And this is a very different mindset from the mindset that unfortunately we see today, not only in the business, but like you said, on a personal level. The idea is, let's carry the lighter weight as we can, or let's take a short-term decision to be the first to benefit of what is happening in the company. So I think it's a different mindset, but it's what is bringing at the end satisfaction to what we do every day.
Yeah, I think it's definitely something that is worth, for me, personal exploration. This focus on responsibility, what it actually means. I also think that it's something that should be embraced as well, because I also think there's a connection between being resilient and personal responsibility, being able to carry the responsibility. And I think there's some wonderful examples of many individuals throughout history that have shown resilience, significant amounts of resilience, and the ability to carry that responsibility. In fact, they go hand in hand, actually, and therefore de facto true leadership as well. They're all Absolutely. Very much combined together.
Jonathan, is a foundational belief, the responsibility, because if you think that you don't have a responsibility, you don't act, you don't do anything. So in fact, it's really one of the most important beliefs that you can have, that you are responsible whatever it happens.
I think the other thing that maybe helps during this time is that the starting point is the personal responsibility to ourselves. I think that's where people are getting confused with everything that's going on around themselves that is outside of their control. They're losing focus that actually, if we take personal responsibility for ourselves, we start to have an impact. Things start to move in the right direction. Doors start to open. Then we have the right frame of mind. Then we can see the opportunities that are in front of us. I'd like to go down this route a little bit. You touched on it earlier that if you know where you want to go and you're open to the opportunities, then life has a way of somehow getting you there. So I'd like to talk about the importance of intuition and instinct. One of my observations today is that is extremely helpful. Having a honed intuition and instinct, because there's so much uncertainty, is extremely helpful. Simone, what are your thoughts on this, and how important is instinct and intuition to you?
Listen, I think it's really important. Every time we have to force ourselves to do something, it means that we should not do it. I would add to intuition the alignment between mind and intuition. That's, I think, every time I've found this alignment, it makes sense to me from a rational point of view, and it makes sense to my intuition. It was the right decision to take. And of course, how many times it's happened that decision seems perfectly rational, but there is something which doesn't work.
Yes.
Or on the contrary, even the most difficult things, when there is disalignment between intuition and mind, then it's easy. At the end, what is passion is when we do something where our mind and our intuition are aligned. There is almost no effort. Despite the load is very heavy, the paradox is that there is basically no effort.
That's the magic, right? That's where the magic happens. So how can we make decisions based on the combination of mind and intuition? Is there a technique for this? Is there a training that we can do to do this? I mean, some people talk about body checks, things like this, where they sit in a quiet space and check themselves all the way through their body and how they're feeling before making an important decision. What do you do to try and get that alignment between mind and intuition?
I think, Jonathan, I don't know what you think, but we simply know it. We simply listen to ourselves and we know it. I don't think that there are techniques needed here. Of course, the more, for example, transcendental meditation is helping us a lot to listen to ourselves better, to eliminate all this distraction and all this structure that we have between ourselves and our true self. So I think this is very good, but at the end we know it. We just have to listen.
So we really have to get to the point where we really are feeling connected with our true self.
Right.
Good. I think we're at a very good point here, Simona. So I would just like to ask, is there anything that you'd like to add that we haven't covered at this point? And I've got a couple of just last questions, which I would like to follow up with you on.
No, I think that has been a fantastic conversation, Jonathan, like always. Thank you very much.
Simona, it's always a pleasure. I do have a couple of last questions for you. Where are you going for inspiration at the moment that you can share with the readers, whether it's materials, whether it's books, whether it's journals? Kind of what's happening at the moment in the world of Simone Gibertoni in terms of finding his inspiration?
Listen, it's books. Filling all the free time that we have with books, even if there is only one good idea that we can find, I think that's the best investment that we can do on ourselves. So I'm a big, let's say, Amazon client. I like to have my house full of books.
Any ones that you would recommend to our listeners around some of the topics that we've been talking about? And obviously your book, High Performance Company, is available, isn't it, on Amazon?
Yeah, listen, it's on my site, simonegibertoni.com. There are both my book. The first one has been a book that I dedicated to my twins, so with some ideas all about the mindset. So I tried to put together all the learning that I had in the first year of my life for them, and this was 10 years ago. Now they are 10 years old, and the second book is more focused on companies, so you can download for free on my site.
Wonderful.
There is bibliography there. There are some other ideas that maybe can be useful for your listener.
Thank you very much, Simona. It's really a pleasure. I thank you very much for a conversation. I know there will be another one of these. We'll be following up after you publish your next book, Simona. So thank you very much.
Thank you, Jonathan. Thank you very much.